All right, let's bring in a child psychologist or a psychologist who focuses on child welfare. Dr. Chuck Williams is an assistant clinical professor in the School of Education at Drexel University. He also serves as the director for the Center for the Prevention of School-Aged Violence. All right, Chuck, Dr. Chuck, you hear that, and what stands out to you?
You know, Ryan, I watched the interview live last night. Obviously, I've been following this case as a former victim or victor of child abuse myself, but it was physical. And as someone who's interested in child welfare, this interview notwithstanding. And the first thing that jumped out to me, which did before, was the interview where he talked about, you know, I'm innocent, and where he was asked, are you attracted to little boys? And he paused for a long period of time. You know, in psychology, as I'm sure you know, being trained as a lawyer and working in and around some of these cases, that's a tell. So in a sense, he had a thought in mind, probably the right answer, but the filter went on and said, you know what, you can't say what you want to say because it'll, you know, sort of get you into more trouble. My guess is he wanted to admit, yeah, I do, and probably, you know, it's gotten me into trouble.
But Dr. Chuck, what stands out to me, we're talking about this young man's mother's interview with Anderson Cooper, and
sure.
Let's take it to the school part of this. The boy says that there's something going on with Jerry. He is, what, he's just a teenager at most, 10 or 11 when he met Jerry Sandusky. And what strikes me more than anything is the school is saying, well, Jerry's got a heart of gold. You know, is this how these cases are happened? Because the way this mother is putting it, it's almost as if they were defaulting on trying to make sure, no, couldn't have happened this way, but we are sensitive to your son, when really I think the focus should be on what this young man is saying at this point, with all the courage that he had in coming forward.
Ryan, you are zeroing in on what makes this such a tough issue to address, both from a policy standpoint and an advocacy standpoint, as well as from, you know, an academic or research standpoint, which is that there's so many things going on. And as you mentioned, part of it is this culture of saying, you know what, maybe it didn't happen, causing the victims to second-guess themselves and to not want to talk about what has happened to them and to not want to report it or to even recant their testimonies or their stories. So, you know, I'm not surprised at that, because it's this culture of secrecy and not wanting to tell and not wanting to deal with uncomfortable and difficult situations that involve the welfare and the quality of life of children. And then, as you know, coming up or going forward, that it may be a case where some of these victims may, or alleged victims, may recant their stories, because it is a large psychological burden, as you mentioned, to be very young, to be a kid, and having to go forward and say, this adult, this quote-unquote role model, this pillar of the community did something that was horrible, and it violated me in every sense of the word, both psychologically, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. That is hard for a young person to carry that burden. I've been there.
Dr. Chuck, you mentioned you've been there. You're a victor over child abuse, and you talk about, I'm wondering for our viewers out there who are watching this right now, what signs do you need to notice in your kids? I hear this victim mother speak, and she did so many things right, trying to take people to task. But, you know, kids, I'm amazed that this young man was able to come forward, looking on the web, talking to people. It's amazing, his strength. But as a victor over child abuse, as someone who deals in these issues on a day-to-day basis, what are the signs, and I only have a little bit of time here, what are the signs people should be looking for?
Sure. I mean, it's anxiety, you know. As the young man mentioned, he said to his mother, I don't want to be around Jerry anymore. So you may have a kid who doesn't want to go to camp anymore, doesn't want to go to soccer practice, little league, football practice, doesn't want to go to school anymore, doesn't want to get on the school bus. These are signs that something is going on, something is going wrong. So in a way, the child is communicating to us, people in positions of responsibility, as adults, as professionals, as parents and caregivers, please protect me. Look out for my welfare. I don't know what to do, but I'm sending you these signals. I need you to pick up on them and to protect me in any way that you can.
Dr. Chuck, thank you so much, and thank goodness for this young man taking these extraordinary steps, because without him coming forward, we might not know as much as we do now, and there could have been possibly more victims. And I want to say this again. These are allegations at this point. There's been an arrest, preliminary hearing coming up, but still, all of this is just so disturbing. Dr. Chuck, thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
Now we're heading back to Houston for testimony in the resentencing of convicted